Welcome, everybody, back here at Veil of Sound. And I'm always happy to talk to people who have already been on the show because it makes a nice kind of full circle. I'm even more happy to do it today with Jarboe. So I'm very, very happy. Thanks for joining the show again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And for everybody, I hope that everybody has already seen our premiere of Holy Water a couple of weeks ago. She also just released her new record, Sightings, through our friends at Consouling Sounds. And of course, the first thing here on the show is always the plug of the day. I want to start by plugging somebody whose work is a little similar to yours, although her emphasis is more on the folk elements, less on the ambient. But I think everybody should listen a little bit more to Linnea Hertjen from um, from Finland, because I think she's a wonderful artist. And if you like Jarboe, I'm very sure you will also like Linnea. So, Jarboe, is there a record or an artist that you've enjoyed recently?
I mean, recently I've been going to live concerts
Good.
rather
That's
than
always a welcome.
and it's all been neoclassical
Mhm.
and classical. I went a little over a week ago to see an evening with Itzhak Perlman.
Oh, that's
So
a.
that was incredible because it was multimedia.
Mhm.
Had film footage, photographs, recordings when he was a child. His appearance on Ed Sullivan, a snippet of him performing at Madison Square Garden with Billy Joel. And he did, I think it was 6 live pieces and ended with Schindler's List. He was accompanied by a pianist. And it was an incredible evening because he talked about his life, and it even showed film footage of him getting down to Emory University and how difficult it is for him, to move around since he had polio as a child and he's in a wheelchair. And he, and then showed a snippet of when he was on Sesame Street. And he's struggling to go up the steps, and this little girl goes running up the steps, and he says, "See, it's easy for you. It's not easy for me." And then she says, "Oh, but then she picks up a violin. Doesn't sound so great." And she goes, "Yes, but this is easy for you and not easy for me." So it was a really cool, personal evening. I was thrilled.
Mhm.
No one knew what it was going to be because it said the program will be announced before it begins. I'm like, what is it going to be? So that's what I've been doing is that, and I'm going to the next season as well at Emory. This
Mhm.
is Emory University.
Mhm. Yeah, for everybody outside the USA, Emory University, the biggest university in Atlanta. As far as I would say, one of the top five, top six universities in
Yes,
all of the country.
right.
Definitely the nicest one. Also, when it
Hmm.
comes to campus, been there
Yeah.
quite a few times back in the day. So yes, definitely a very nice place to go. Let's talk about your new record, Sightings.
Hmm.
When I listened to it and when I read a little bit about the background, and we'll come to that in a moment, I thought about two words, and I'm not sure which one you find more appropriate for the record: foreshadowing or premonition.
Oh, I'm supposed to choose one?
Yeah, maybe if you can.
I mean, I don't know. I think maybe the last track was a kind of a premonition, and as it
Mhm.
was the first time that I did a version of that on 13 Masks, that
Yeah.
was my first solo album. But that was in a more Baroque style, and this
Mhm.
this style was more somber and
Yeah.
ambient and more of a tone poem,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
kind of like when you're hearing the narrator, me, it's like she's kind of she's thinking, she's pondering, she's visualizing and kind
Mhm.
of speaking aloud, to herself, as it were. So in that way, that would be perhaps a premonition, and it
Mhm.
ends in a good way because as listeners may begin to interpret the meaning of it, there's a bomb involved, and it sinks into the sea instead of hitting its target. So, so, so that's a positive thought that I
Yeah.
had.
I thought about those two things because I know that one of the central points for the record is you sighting or seeing a bird, a
Mm-hmm.
vireo. We'll come to the bird in a moment, but please, if I'm wrong, please correct me. But if I understand it, you get a foreshadowing of the bird's presence before it is already there, right?
Correct. Correct. Definitely.
So, can you tell us a little bit about how you came to sight that little bird
Well,
and
at
where?
first it piqued my interest right outside my window. It piqued my interest because I never had heard anything like it before. It's they've been documented as doing 22,197 songs over a 10-hour period. So so I heard this verbose, and it just I couldn't believe how verbose and talented it was musically. Just not repeating its call, just singing like it was just in a state of rapture,
Mm-hmm.
and very unusual vireo, not like the other ones that I've heard. This one was quite loud and also trying to, it sounded like it was trying to get your attention because it would do in between little phrases, it would do kind of a cacking sound, and then it would go on and on and on. So finally I went out to see if I could see it, and it blends so perfectly into the trees in the summer that you can't see it. And it's quite small, and it's a vibrant green, the color of the leaves of the tree that it was sitting in. And I kept going out there trying to see it. And then one day, because he kept returning to the same tree, and then one day he came forward and I could see it. And I was like, oh, there it is. And then it came forward more. And then I decided to record it. So I would go out every single day and I would stand there for a good 45 minutes, just giving it my undivided attention and fascinated by this relationship that every day it was doing this performance and what seemed to be a performance just for me. And I thought it was very, very unusual, And so this thing went on for quite some time, weeks. And then one day, another one appeared not too far away, and then mine left with it. And I was very sad because a couple of weeks went by where I didn't hear it and I didn't see it. And then one day it appeared and it was singing again. And I went out and looked at it, and it was right there looking at me. And the other one was a few trees over, kind of watching. And when he finished his performance, because that's what it was like, he and the other one, they flew up into the sky together, like circling up into the sky, and they flew off into the distance. And so I interpreted that as it returning to me to say, goodbye, it's been great to perform for you. and
So it was an encore.
I shall bid adieu. Yeah. And so what I researched was that was a male, and that from its call, and that it was basically there, trying to in that season trying to find a mate, and so when he found one, they went off together, and then he came back and performed for me before they went off together. So it was a remarkable event. I'd never had experienced anything like it before in my life with a wild creature, as it were, and it was definitely a romantic kind of interlude. I felt total love in my heart for this little guy, and the performance blew my mind. Just musically, it was just impressing me to no end. I was just beyond, thrilled at what I was witnessing. So yeah, so that was that experience. So he showed himself to me, I suppose, because he sensed that I was there every single day. So he gave me this reward of showing himself to me, and then made at least I think it was eye contact, because I saw his red eyes. Yeah.
And you then also recorded part of his song, didn't you?
Yeah, and I decided to do a whole piece around it, and that led to the whole like nature thing, and also touching on life and death. So good friends of mine had died not too long ago, and so I did a kind of a piece, like a haiku, like a minimalist poem kind of a thing for this lady that was a good friend of mine who was a painter and artist. And I wanted it to just be kind of mystical, like I was visualizing her in another dimension, just in a mystical environment, painting and, with her heart and being very happy. So I did a piece for her for that. And I wanted it to be rather like kind of like a fairy tale, kind of childlike. And I was very happy I sent my recording to Austin using a synthesizer violin, and then Andrea Calderon replaced it with real cello and violin. And so I take my piano part and I fade it down and let her take, dominate a dominant persona on the track. I was very happy with the way it came out. There's a video that a friend of mine just made for that song, so I'll get that up there at some point. So it's yeah. So then, the choir and night fox, that's another animal here, and that's the vixen scream, which in this case was also a male. And the male and the female can do the vixen scream, and it's very frightening, when you first hear it and you don't know what it is, especially when it's late at night and it's out in the woods, which it was here. And so that is, again, it can be a territorial call, like this is my area, stay away.
Yeah.
or it can be a call, a call for mating or whatever. So I recorded that and wanted to document that, and then I thought it'd be interesting to do multiple voices and have it kind of be in the background. So it's like this choir interacting with this wild animal. So that's how that one came about. And yeah, and they all have a story, Holy Waters, that's kind of a tribute to a group of like a spiritual group in my mind, in this case with the lyrics, Buddhist. And so it is the community of Buddhists that are partaking in a ceremony and in a happy event. And then the breath, that was, I invited former members of Father Murphy, Kiara and Freddie Lee. I invited them to work on a track. I sent them the what I had recorded, and just do whatever you want, And so they did this kind of space rock kind of stuff with effects and vintage synthesizers and processing their breathing. And so I decided that, well, in that case, this is breathe. This is also involving meditation and going into space, breathing. And so they came about with with collaborations with friends, I would say, and also a sightings, meaning a larger vision.
It's interesting that you use the word collaborations, because if we take it to an abstract level, then you are also in a way collaborating with nature, aren't you?
Oh yeah. Well, the credits on the actual artwork, I credit the fox and the vireo and I credit the vireo as vocalizations.
And then there are also a lot of, let's say, full circle moments on the record, because first of all, we have this migratory bird who comes to you, flies away, comes back. So that's like a circle. But you've also already mentioned it. You also collaborated with several people that you have already collaborated with. You've just mentioned the people from Father John Murphy. And then there is another person that we should also mention, because you will also be taking him on tour, and that's for Harris. That's also in a way full circle, isn't it? Because you've already played with him in Swans.
We collaborate. How we work together is he has multiple projects with people, and so he will invite me to record on that, and then I reciprocate by inviting him to record on something. So for example, I used a vintage vocal processor that is very, very vintage at this point, the electroharmonic 16-second digital delay, And I have one of the first ones ever manufactured. And so on that, I sent that project tracks I recorded for that. And that was a project he's doing with someone in Australia. And yeah, so we've been working together now for years. Live was only an arty kind of a festival thing in Austin, and so I went down there and I invited P. Emerson Williams to work to do the show, as well as Thor, since he lives in Austin. So that's how that came about, because he happened to be living where the festival was, you know. Mm-hmm. And that was more of an improv kind of thing. Peter and I did, stuff from what we had just done on tour with Josef van Weissem. And so we kind of did that, and then Thor kind of improv'd, and marimba and drum and things like that. So that was a lot of fun. That was successful. So that's how all that kind of came about. And then I just thought it'd be good to have a multi-instrumentalist, someone that can play horns, synthesizer, percussion, and and so he can do all that. So you get a lot, from this one musician.
Yeah, buy one musician, get free.
And Joy, she's wonderful. I have not worked with her before. I've never met her before, but Chris Forrest, my friend in the Bay Area in California, recommended her. And she lives in the Netherlands. And so she has a wonderful voice and can play piano, and and so this is going to be great, because now, instead of me doing my call and response vocals that I do on some of my songs, I can change the tone of the voice for one of them, so it's like a dialogue. So now I have someone who can who can actually do that live. So that'll be cool. So say on Ode to Vie, I'll do the poem, and then she will do the sensual kind of emotive vocals that I did. So she will be doing the rapturous vocals while I'll do the spoken part. So it's going to be really cool. We're doing caught, and that's about being caught in samsara and caught with your attachment to ego. So she and I will do this kind of dialogue, like we're debating each other, and instead of me trying to be two different people, I now have two different people to do it. So I'm pretty excited about that, as well as her beautiful piano playing. So what will I be doing? I will be doing voice, but I will be in charge of the field recordings. So the sound of the ocean, the sounds of the vireo, the sounds of the fox, things like that that are on the songs that we're going to be doing.
Which are, of course, very instrumental to the record, because, for example, if we listen to Holy Water, we not only have your voice, but we also have a field recording of water. Now that you come on tour, and for everybody who wants to see Jarboe perform, just underneath this video, you can find the tour dates. For this tour, you're doing a long tour this time. It's about a month that you are spending in Europe, aren't you?
I think it's like 19 shows.
Yeah, 19 shows.
It was 17, and then the show in Budapest, they contacted booking person Federico, and they invited us to do that, and so that was like an add-on. And then because of working with the Circle in Athens, I just mentioned to him, well, I know that they had before wanted me to come back over there, mm-hmm. since I've done a couple of reissues with them, and so I introduced him to Maria at the label, and so then she reached out to a booking person there. So that's how that came about, was me trying to fulfill the desire to have me over there, since I've worked with this company. But it's not without problems, because in order to do this, we won't be in the van. So it means that the gear is going to have to be, the backline is going to have to be rented for each show separately. Okay. And it means that I won't be able to take boxes of records and stuff to either of those countries, because they've got us on a small airplane that is not going to allow more than the minimal baggage. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be the only drawback there is, Maybe I can sneak in some CDs. I don't know.
So that really sounds like a strange thing. So for every gig, you have to bring all the equipment, or is there, for example, the field recordings? You will
the
probably bring
the
those as samples, don't you?
the 17 original bookings, I'm renting a back line.
Mhm.
So the equipment, except for what they will own, like Joy's bringing her, I guess, her laptop and her MIDI keyboard, and of course I'm going to bring my gear over there in my case. So the only rented stuff is going to be mostly Thor's drums and a Korg he's playing and some other stuff, and he will bring what he can. But yeah, it's going to be a lot, bringing a full back line for us. Um, and then, of course, because that's impossible to take to the two add-ons, and those promoters will be renting in that for us, and we'll just have to
Mhm.
show up at sound check and see what that's going to be like.
And let me take the full circle thing up again, because Um, and that is something that I would like to ask you. If we see a lot of full circle moments, and we'll come to another one that you've already hinted at. If we look at those life as a full circle going ever around, and we arrive at a similar or maybe even same spot as before, um, how influential are we as people then? What is our force in all of this?
Oh, wow, that's too deep a philosophical question.
I know. That's what I like to do. So,
Uh, yeah. Well, I think that's up to the individual. I'm
mhm,
not a prophet. I don't know. I
mhm,
I think that it's up to the individual. What I personally try to do is give little hints, like little
mhm,
petals from a flower kind of thing
mhm,
on every album, and um, about attachment and about kind of letting go to certain things that we were programmed to be attached to, because I do think there's a lot of programming involved with how we view the world and as we grow up. So to challenge that is very, very important, and this leads to the bigger reply, which would be that the answer is read lots of books, read lots of philosophy, read the classics, just keep up with your literature, and that will give you an expansive understanding of, in my opinion, of the
mhm,
universe, of the world itself. And you can kind of toss things and not let them destroy you.
mhm,
I think that's the biggest thing to learn, is to let things pass through you. You can
mhm.
experience them, but then let them pass out, pass away.
That is something
Does
that
that kind of answer the? I don't
it does, and
know.
I can even pick that up because if we then take up the thing with the vireo again, um, a lot of people would probably not notice that at first. They would hear a bird and they wouldn't even think about it. But isn't that also one of those little things that you are dropping on this record to enjoy the little things, the things that many of us and most of us take for granted?
Yeah. I know. I wake up every day being grateful for where I am right now with all the trees and the nature around me. The large, I have owls at night, that I love hearing talk to each other and other strange noises. And then there are herds of deer that come through, and I see them eating. Like I'll be at my desk, and there's a big herd of deer eating, and little baby deer romping around. And so I think that I'm grateful for that now, and I don't for a minute take for granted that the idea of trees and animals is something to really be aware of and respect, with the way
Mhm,
things are being overbuilt in cities all over the world,
mhm.
and destruction happening everywhere all over the world. And this is why I try to be very, very grateful for every minute that I have, every moment that I have left.
Interesting that you say that because when looking at your whole body of work and it's very interesting that the PR that your PR man emphasizes it, and I also then thought about it. This is your 55th record. I think it's more than 30 solos by now. And of course, that speaks for a highly productive and creative person. Um,
But
how?
that number, I wanted to say that number is interesting because you got to remember early on, I was releasing things only on cassette. I
Mhm,
was part of a cassette mail art network before I joined Swans. And so, I mean, it depends on how you define solo album. Like, do you
mhm,
define it by what's been on a company,
mhm,
affiliated with the label, or you define it as self-released and underground and only available from your website, or pre-website, only available through a
mhm,
mail art network of friends all over the world. I mean, and before I joined Swans, I was sending my tape projects to Japan, to all over Europe, and things would come in to me, and we didn't make money. We just sort of like exchanged art, exchanged. So I mean, I don't know. I wonder where that number comes from. It might
would
go
you guess that
back to
it's
the
higher?
huh.
Would you guess
I
that the number?
definitely think
Yeah.
so. I mean, I've appeared on so many things too. I mean,
Mhm,
I've done, many projects that were for a worthy cause, like to raise money for a medical
mhm.
group and all this. I've contributed tracks to those, and so I mean, I think that it just depends. But I mean, and then you say working with other artists. I mean, some of those things I don't even know if they're around anymore. Like I did a track with words I really loved with Yezu, Justin Broadwick, and I don't know if he has that online anymore, but it was very lyrics about my life in New York,
Mhm.
and so it's called Storm Coming On. So I mean, I think it just that number is relative, is what I'll say.
Yeah, but it speaks for no matter what the number, if it's below 55 or 90, maybe 100, we don't know. But
Yeah. Uh-huh.
it speaks for a very, very creative person.
And well, here's the
How
thing.
did you reach that state?
Well, I have to interject this. See, I don't think I have been as prolific as I should be. What happened was this album, I should have been doing the shows and this thing coming out a year ago. And the problem was I had a kind of a sports, if you can call it that, injury where I fell. And anyway, the bottom line is I broke my wrist on my right hand, my dominant hand. So I had to go into kind of an immobilizer thing, or like a removable cast, and then after that, after months of that, into rehab, physical therapy, and then I had to have surgery. So they wanted to, Consoling Sounds withheld it until I could physically go on tour.
Mhm.
So to me, see, I couldn't work during that time because my right hand wasn't, functional.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
see, I feel like if that hadn't happened, I'd have three more things done by now, at least.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's then it again speaks for that really creative person. But can you maybe explain to us how it is possible for you to work on so many projects, so many record songs, and still find that new creative spark?
Well, it just depends on something that stimulates that creative
Mhm,
spark. I wouldn't call it a muse. I wouldn't call it inspiration. I would just say it's a
mhm,
stimulus. So in this way, I made the decision after the one of the albums that I did for Consoling Sounds, I made the decision to end the new work. That's the Illusory album. I made the decision to revisit something from the beginning at the end in a totally
mhm,
different way. So I did Man of Hate with 13 Masks. I did Man of Hate and the way I always wanted it to be, like a play, a theater event with an audience and with multiple cherubs and all kinds of stuff going on before the royal court. And then I had the sound of a guillotine coming down and whacking off those cherubs' heads that were just going, love, 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 true love. So whack. so then, the audience, and then you hear me, the real normal me, as it were, come out and sing a refrain. so that was my dream version of that. So this one I wanted to do a version of Ancient Memories. So I already have the final track on everything I will do in the future, and that will be revisiting something from the early days. Yeah, so that's already going to be there, whether it fits or not. That's going to be the last thing. Is a tip to my own career, as it were.
So then, in a way, you yourself are the spark for those things.
Yes, that's right.
And it's interesting, that is also the full circle moment that I was hinting at. You revisited of ancient memory. It sounds wonderfully different from the original version that was recorded 35 or released 35 years ago on 13 Masks. And you've already said that you are trying to revisit other chapters. How do you choose those songs? For example, how did you choose of Ancient Memory? I wanted to revisit that.
It seemed apt. It seemed relevant to now. And, Peter and I did that during the show in 2022 when we were in Europe. And at that time, in my mind, the way that I dressed, I didn't get dressed up. I came on stage in fatigue cargos, and that at that time was in my mind for Europe. It was in solidarity with Ukraine, and so in that way, I was referencing the war and my feelings for that, and so I decided to do it again on this album because it's continuing to be a commentary on conflict. Now, I won't comment too much about what's going on with the instigator of conflict, but we all know. And
let's not get into politics.
Exactly. So it was definitely responding to that. So that was how I chose it. But the next one, it's probably going to be something again referencing what I sense about the environment around me and the meaning. And I think that those songs have word-wise, they're gonna have meaning no matter what's going on in the world.
Then there is something that struck me, and I have forgotten to ask that before when we were talking about the vireo. At some point, it seems as if you yourself are imitating the vireo itself, the bird song. How long did it take you to find an adequate human version of that?
How long does it take? What do you mean? Like,
yeah,
do you mean performance-wise, or
yeah, like how did you find the tonality, the voice?
It was just natural, I suppose. Okay. It was just inherent, like instinctive. It's funny because I don't the voices that people have asked me about, the different voices, and like someone the other day was like, I've listened to a body of your work and I can't even believe it's the same person. Well, it's not a physical exercise, it's a mental exercise. So you put yourself there. Who is this person? So a cover version of, say, Black Eyed Dog. In that way, I was seeing myself in the Appalachia, and I was kind of wearing overalls and barefoot, and I was, so in that way, that voice came forward because that's who I was. So it just kind of depends on, what is this song about, and who is the person that is the character or the persona that is singing it, and telling the story. So you tell the story, and then you discard that, and you go on to another character. Like, what is this persona talking about? What is this song about? And what should the voice sound like that is driving home the story? So that's how I work on everything.
It's very interesting that you also mention the version of Black Eyed Dog, because, for example, you've also done a version of Love Will Tear Us Apart, which is, of course, set or performed by a band coming from a very, very different background because Manchester is
Mhm.
nothing like Appalachia. Um, was it for you also in a way beneficial that you lived in, for example, New York, and that you now again live in a more rural environment? Did that help you in a way?
Help me with what particular?
With imagining that person that you
Oh, okay.
are covering.
Well, with the level tears apart, the version that got the attention in the MTV video at the time on the show they had called 120 Minutes, that was very poppy and done, with a drum machine and all that. And then I'm doing the background vocals, Love, Level Tears Apart. Well, they told me to sing like it said it sounded too much like Jarboe, so I should try to sing like a, studio background singer, studio hired. And I tried, and then the label told me, "Oh, you sound like you're doing a football cheer." I mean, it was impossible. I was like, "Well, you're telling me not to sound like myself." So I'm a little confused since the name of the song is going to go out under the band I'm in. That's me. So I'm in it. So that was that. And so I didn't like it at all. I didn't like the version. And so then we decided we would do the so-called black version, which didn't get very much attention. And they put me into Wharton Tier studio. I think it was on 22nd Street. And so that's a small studio where Sonic Youth recorded, and a lot of bands recorded from the East Village. And so that was just me on the Casio singing, and then Norman came in and did guitar. And so it was done, in an afternoon and very quickly. And so in that way, in my mind, even though I don't sound like her, in my mind, I was visualizing Patsy Cline. So I was doing kind of a heartfelt, like a country take, like a more of a soulful take, rather than a poppy take.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what guided that vocal, and that's the way it's been with everything. Can't Find My Way Home. I imagine that song as a song about spiritual loss and a sense of betrayal, of a divine being, whether it's God or whatever. So it's like I'm lost. I can't find my way home. Help guide me. So that one was done with that kind of sorrow. And every kind of cover version has been done from. I think what my favorite cover version I've ever done was "Cry Me a River," and I wanted it to be the opposite of Julie London's version, which is rather coy, and sassy. So that one is the one I did is full of severe pain, and then there's a background track of sobbing and moaning. And so that was like really coming from the gut, and that was a one take, and so once you find that voice, you hold on to that voice and you don't try to do it again, So frequently in Swans, it would be the first vocal that I did, like Can't Find My Way Home. It's like I went into the vocal booth and it was like, done. I was like, it's okay. One take, you're out of there. So that's, they're capturing.
Why overdo it if the first one is already
Yeah,
good, right?
they're capturing the intensity of the first
That's true.
effort. But
Yeah, that's true.
1,000 years was the same way. That's me standing next to the engineer at the control console, holding the mic, standing right there. That's the one they used.
Mm-hmm. But what I was hinting at is this question of you've lived very different lives. You've lived in New York City. You come from the South. Um, does that or do you also sometimes see two different versions of Jarboe, the very metropolitan, cosmopolitan version from New York, and sometimes maybe the more rural version?
I think I'm always going to be the New Yorker. I'm very into avant-garde fashion and avant-garde, pretty much everything. I'm very aware of, cultural, like of style and designers that reach for something unusual. I was always interested in cultural experiences, like I lived going to art museums and art galleries in the metro Atlanta area before I moved to New York. And when I moved to New York, I was constantly going to Soho and then Chelsea. And I went to Lincoln Center and Carnegie Hall and all these events alone because I didn't have anyone up there that cared about the music and the dance performances and the avant-garde stuff that I cared about, And so I experienced. I was always going to art. So I think that that's something that, and I took art classes and music classes at Georgia State and at the High Museum of Art. So I think that person was there from childhood, just as a little kid looking at art magazines and all this. And of course, my dad was from Chicago, so I wasn't really raised by Southern parents. My mother and my mother and grandmother were born in New Orleans, and New Orleans is not technically the South; it's its own thing.
Yeah.
So I think that I think my parents had a lot to do with me reaching and being more aware and more culturally exploratory, and certainly my father, because he's the one that taught me to sing and to play the keyboard, and he was very well read, and like he was the first person to give me books by Dostoevsky, and he was the first person to tell me about like all kinds of literature that I wasn't supposed to be reading until I was at least in high school, and so I think that so it's your environment. So I'd say my parents had a lot to do with.
I have one last question before we come to the quick fire round at the end. And that is something that struck me when I did some research again, and I found a very interesting quote by our colleagues in Metal Italia, because a metal magazine or something from Italy, they called you the Pythia of the American underground. Is that a compliment for you, or do you
For sure
say
it is. For sure it is. I would say, that's the oracle. Yeah. And so the Illusory album is all about that phrase. When I read that, I was thrilled. I thought it was a high compliment, and so that kind of vision and that kind of oracle, I thought was a fantastically wonderful thing to say. I was very happy, and so that was a stimulus for the artwork on Illusory, which Densora did. That is the oracle on the cover, and you look at it closely, you'll see the fumes that she's breathing, and of course the story is that they had different ones, of course, and the oracles would breathe these fumes and they would have these visions. So that's the story of the oracle. And yeah, no, I love being called that. That's the most wonderful thing I think anyone's ever said about me. Yeah. In fact, I did an interview with them, and the journalist who writes for them was up there at the North Pole. So that was great.
Did it ever put any kind of pressure on you? Or did you ever feel any kind of pressure because of that quote? I mean, like, it's a big compliment.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm thrilled with it. That'll always be the quote, I mean, I won't be in a grave. I'll be, cremated. But if there's going to be a plaque, they can put that on there, and I'll be happy.
Yeah. I mean, like, how much more badass could it be, Jarboe? Yeah,
it's great.
Let's not go there because we still want another 55 or 95 records. Jarboe, first of all, thanks for all the insight into the record, but of course we still have the quick fire round at the end. I've already explained it to you, so everybody who doesn't know, go back to some other interview. Let's start with two highly influential post-punk / industrial artists, Coil versus Fetus. Which one would you rather listen to after this interview?
Oh no, because I of course I know Jim. So you've asked me a question that I have to take the fifth on because I love Jim Thurwell.
Yeah, I know.
So you would
choose Fetus, right?
I can't answer the question.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, Coil. Well, I'm not going to go there. I'd have to say Jim, I guess.
Yeah, for everybody.
No, I love Coil. Coil did some incredible work, so I can't.
Was that an inspiration for you back in the day? coil?
No.
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 Well, you don't have.
No,
Don't have
we
to
used
say
to
no.
see them when we'd
Yeah.
hang out at Mute. We would see them in there with
Mm-hmm.
the little dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at one time Peter Christopherson was going to do a video for us, and I think something came up where someone else did the video. But yeah, no, we knew John and Peter.
So I hope that I'm very sure you quickly already see the connection between Fetus and the next couple. I'll give you Lydia Lunch versus Diamanda Gallas.
Oh, Lydia.
Lydia?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you say why, apart from the personal connection?
Well, I'd say, I mean, I know both of them, so I just would say I have more of a affinity for Lydia's where she's coming from. You know, she's a political and social commentator, and she gets people to think, and of course, so does the other artist. So, but I think, yeah, I'll just stick with my choice.
And trying also to come up with some more.
Oh, I wanted to interject. I did see Diamanda perform at Cathedral of St. John the Divine, and it was fucking incredible. So I don't want to say anything.
You mean
in
St. John the Divine in New York, right?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, go on.
I also tried to come up with a modern version of this Diamanda versus Lydia thing. So I came up with Otai Oni versus Pharmacon.
Oh, wow. So the answer is, which would I rather listen to?
Which one would you rather listen to after this interview, if you had to choose?
Can we go on to the next? Well, Pharmacon.
Pharmacon? I'll even it out by saying you chose Fetus because of personal relations. I would have to choose Otayoni because Lane is just a wonderful person, and that's why I would even it out here. You have hinted at your Southern heritage, although it's not a Southern heritage, but in the South. I'll give you probably the two most famous blues artists of the mid 20th century. Lead Belly versus Muddy Waters. Which one would you prefer?
Oh, they're both genius. They're both genius. I'd have
Yes,
to say Muddy Waters. I'd have to say Muddy Waters.
And then one with a little bit of a tongue in cheek. Which one would you rather choose, Robert Johnson or the Devil?
Robert Johnson.
And the last one, because of your UConn growing up in Louisiana, or at least time-wise, which dessert would you prefer, a beignet or a pecan? Wait, a pecan praline.
Neither.
Neither. Okay. Not a sweet tooth.
Like a bitter chocolate, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Something more substantial. So, Jarboe, thanks for your time. Thanks for the wonderful answers, and of course, thanks for Sightings. Everybody, when you see this interview, it's already out a couple of days. Please take your time. A very, very good record, which will make you think and breathe wonderfully at the same time. So, Jarboe, thanks for your time.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I had fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.